And we're going to go over what was done in the live stream last night, and it's just going to be a quick tutorial on how we obtain the fall colors within this edit, well, within this picture that was mostly green because it was shot in March. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take you guys to the straight up raw file, and this has been completely unedited, and it was done. The shot was done in March, and it was done, let's see, it was set at 6:51 Eastern time, and they're 2 hours behind me. So this was at about 4:50 in the afternoon, and it was done at the base of a mountain in Colorado Springs. So this image has been completely unedited. This is straight out of camera, still the raw. So I've got this loaded into Lightroom, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and bring it over into Adobe Photoshop. So to do that, I'm going to right click right here on the image in the library, go to Edit In, and then select Edit in Adobe Photoshop, whichever version you have. Okay, now I've got the raw image loaded in Photoshop. The first thing that I do before I start working on any other picture, doing any other extensive retouching or anything like that, is I pull up Adobe Camera Raw for all of my raw images. And this way I can make my image mechanically sound so the image looks like how it was supposed to when it was supposed to be in camera. This image though, since I've done it multiple times in the last 24 hours, it doesn't require too much adjustment. So you can see my settings of this shot on the top right. It was shot at a 2.8. My ISO was a 400. This was shot with my 70-200, and I was zoomed all the way in to 200 millimeters. My shutter speed was set at 1/250th of a second. I keep zoomed in on my 70-200, and I keep my f-stop down to 2.8 so I can obtain that creamy bokeh effect in the background. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to mess with my sliders a little bit and see what we get. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to bring my exposure up, not too much, just a tad. We're going to bring the contrast up. I'm going to bring my highlights down. I'm going to bring my shadows down a little bit too. And that's because I want to maintain the shadows that we have on his face right here, that are coming in on his hat, and of course the natural shadows that she has on her face, because the sun is obviously behind them. It's not in their face, so they don't have any harsh shadows. I'm going to go ahead and bring the whites down just a little bit because she's got a little bit of a glow thing going on, and her whites, the whites on the shirts, are a little bit bright. So, and I'm also going to bring my blacks down just a tad, just to deepen those. So that is all I've done to this shot right now, is I altered the exposure. I just brought it up to 0.15. I brought my contrast up a little bit to deepen those blacks, as well as lowering my blacks to make them a bit darker. I brought my whites down, my highlights down, and I brought my shadows down so we could keep the natural shadows that are cast on their face. And let's see. If you've never done Adobe Camera Raw filter before, and it is located in Photoshop CC, it's under the filters menu, and of course you hit Camera Raw filter. When this box opens up, you can adjust what you need to in the sliders. You've also got different boxes up here where you can change the curve. I can sharpen if I want to. I can do all that in here already. I can do, I can convert everything. I can do my hue, saturation. This is the panel that's on the right side in Lightroom. This is it right here as well. So I can fix my chromatic abrasions that happen depending on the lens that you use and the type of lighting that's in the area. There's a little purple glow that shows up sometimes. I can add my vignetting and fix my calibration with my camera and all that jazz. This is very basic what I do. All I messed with was the basic tab itself. The next thing I'm going to do is that there's these little buttons up here on the left side, top left side, where you can do multiple things. You can do color picker, red eye, spot removal, adjustment brush, graduated filter, radial filter. And what I'm going to use the graduated filter. And when I use this is to strictly bold the colors in my background. Because when the colors start changing, I want them to pop. So I've got my graduated filter selected. I haven't changed anything other than my exposure, and I'm making my blacks blacker. That's essentially what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and click, and you can hit shift and you can drag it over. And to me, that's not as dark as I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my exposure down, and I'm going to bring my blacks down. Just like that. And I'm going to drag it a little bit more. Okay? We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm going to do the same thing from the top. But with the top, I'm not going to make it as deep black because it's blending in with the other two that I have on each side. So I'm trying to maintain, I guess you could say, the texture or the details that are still in the background in the corner. So I'm done with this right now. Just in Adobe Camera Raw. I am done fixing the image of how I wanted it to look in camera, but a lot of things like this you can't really do in camera. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and you'll quickly see the before and the after of what we just did. Before, after. And that's all with simple changes done in the Adobe Camera Raw feature that's in Photoshop. And you can also do this in Lightroom. So now the next thing I'm going to do, we're going to start changing the colors. And there's two different processes that you can do. And I actually merged two different processes into one. Because depending on the image, you may be able to get away with one thing or the other. Or in this case, with this image, we can merge both of them together to really make it pop. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to create a new layer. And we're going to use this button right down here at the bottom. And it's a little circle, and that's to create a new layer, a new adjustment layer. And we're going to select Selective Color. That's the type of layer that we want to create. So when this properties box shows up on the right side, this is to pretty much say what you want to adjust in this layer based on the colors. You have a colors drop-down box. The first box we're going to select is reds. Okay, and the only slider that we're going to adjust is the cyan. Okay, we're going to bring that all the way to the left. And you can see right now it's already changed colors in the back. And with this, do not worry about the tones that are changing on their skin tones. We will be masking them out, so it does not affect them. So with the next color that we're going to do, from the color drop down, we're going to select yellows. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to move that down. And with this one, you can move the sliders around. So if I bring my yellows up, that brings in more orange. You can really tweak and mess around with these. It's like a trial and error to see how you like how it turns out. So with this one, specifically for this image, we've got the cyan one all the way brought down, and I brought our yellows all the way up. And you can see the yellows made it a deep orange, or like a bright orange. And then we've got the deeper oranges going into. So we're going to do one more color from the drop down, and we're going to select greens. Same thing. Cyan, bring it down, and you can go ahead and mess with the other ones, but with this one, it doesn't do much. And I don't like to touch the black slider because I've already got the perfect amount of black that I want at this time, because we're going to do some more with that here in a couple minutes. Okay, so we'll recap on your selective color layer. We did 3 different colors from the drop down. We did red, yellows, and greens. And the red, we brought the cyan slider, we brought it all the way down, all the way to the far left. For the yellows, for the same slider, the cyan slider, we brought it all the way down to the left. We brought the yellows all the way up. And for the greens, we took the cyan slider and brought it all the way down. And we're done with this layer. We're done with the adjustment parts of this layer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and make sure our mask is selected. We're going to select our brush tool, and we're going to make sure that our color for our brush is set to black. We're going to go ahead and mask the subjects out because, as you can see, they turned a little orange. So I'm not going to make it a fancy smancy masking. And I'm going to leave parts of her hair because I like the glow that it's got going on back there. But this is not going to be the most perfect masking. It's going to be quick. Okay, that works for me. So now we have a masking layer that we can use on all the additional layers that we need to. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to create another layer, and it's called a gradient map. You're going to go ahead and click your little circle button that's at the bottom for a new adjustment layer, and we're going to select gradient map. Well, the image is going to change based on the last thing that you just used this for. So I used blacks in a gradient map, or in a gradient layer itself. So we're going to go ahead and click on the properties, and we're going to select the box where the color is, and we're going to change the colors. This first one, you're going to want to change to an orange color. It doesn't need to be a dark orange, and we don't want it to be a super light orange either. So this is the orange that I'm going to select. And then we want that color to blend into a yellow or cream. So I stick with creams because the blend mode that we're going to use, it makes it pop a little bit more. So I've got my orange to cream selected. I'm going to hit OK. On your layer blend mode that's located right here above your layer list, if you click that, there's a drop down and you can change the blending mode of your layers. I'm going to select soft light for this layer. And you can see it made some changes, especially to the colors. So you can adjust your opacity on how strong you want this layer to impact everything. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this down to about 40%. So this is before and after. And actually, I think I may bring it down just a tad bit more. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my previous mask that I used on the selective color layer. And to do this, you hold down your Alt key on your keyboard and you click and you drag it up. And you can copy the same exact mask that you did previously. So that way you don't have to redo it. So we're going to go ahead and create another gradient map layer. And same thing, we're going to go to the little circle at the bottom, click on gradient map, and this time we're going to go ahead and change the colors brown to cream. And I like to use like a medium dark brown. And then my cream that I use is going to be based out of the yellows. So I've got a medium to cream going. And the same thing with this one. I'm going to change my blend mode to soft light. And I'm going to copy my mask up. And this one, I kind of like what it did. I don't think I'm going to really adjust the opacity on this one at all. So we're going to do one more thing, and that will actually complete the color changing process of this edit. So I'm going to create one more layer, and I'm just going to create a regular gradient fill layer. You're going to have this little box pop up. You could change the colors if you need to, but for this one, we're doing black to transparent. For style, you're going to go radial, and then you're going to go ahead and click the reverse button here underneath scale. For the angle, I like to stick around 135. For the scale, I like to stay between 135 and 155. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Well, obviously it just made our picture look a little weird. So with the blend mode with this layer, we're going to select overlay. And you can adjust accordingly, which we are going to. And I'm also going to bring my masking layer up. You don't always have to do this, but sometimes you just need to. So there we go. I brought my opacity down for that layer down to 54%. And now I'm going to go ahead and group what we just did. And you can do shift click and hit Command or Control G, and it just groups everything in one folder for you. So we can go from before to after. And just 4 new layers. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly do what I normally do just to finish up the photo. I do like to work on the eyes and adjust the colors there accordingly so they actually pop but not drastically pop. And the final touches that I would do before I present it to a client. So with my eyes, I use dodge and burning. So I'm just going to burn around the outside of her eyes and her pupil. And this is a great way to fix makeup too. If somebody's makeup is worn off on their eyes, this is a great way to fix it. And as well, if you learn about contouring, when women do contouring makeup, it's a good way for skin retouching as well. There's tons of contouring videos out there in the world. And I'm darkening his pupil right here because he's got a catch light. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and get our dodge tool. And I'm just going to do the right sides of his eyes. Our right, his left. And I'm going to do the whites of hers. And just a quick sweep on the inside. And then I'm going to create a curves layer. In this curves layer, we're going to go ahead and do her eyes first. I'm going to go ahead and select greens. And I'm going to drag the greens up just a tad. And then I'm going to hit Control or Command I. And I'm going to invert that layer. I'm going to bring out my brush tool again. And because my layer has been inverted, it's now black. I'm going to need a white brush in order to mask what I want to come through. So I got a little sloppy there. Give me just a second. So I can adjust the opacity on how I want this to look. And I'm backing up. And I'm going to bring it down just a tad to about 70%. And I'm going to go ahead and select the picture layer again. And I'm going to go ahead and do a click and quick wiggle to sharpen. And then we're just going to sharpen Aiden's eyes because his are already a good color. So right now I'm done with everything that I want to do in Photoshop. I'm going to bring it to Lightroom, and everything I'm about to do in Lightroom you can do in Photoshop. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And it's going to save, and it's automatically going to pop up over here onto Lightroom for me. So I'll give that just a minute to come over. Here's our finished product from Photoshop. So I'm going to do my finishing touches on everything else. I'm going to go ahead and go to my Develop module. And I am not using any presets at all. This has all been hand done. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my Basic tab. And again, this is everything that was in the Adobe Camera Raw first box. So I'm going to bring my contrast up just a tiny bit. I'm going to bring my highlights down just a little bit. I'm going to bring my clarity down. Not too much, but just a little bit. I brought my whites down just a little bit. Brought my blacks down just a little bit. Shadows, I'm not going to mess with. I like how they are. So the next one, the next box we're going to go to is the detail box. I'm going to sharpen. I sharpen a lot. I try not to over sharpen, but I sharpen accordingly for Facebook. That sucks the life out of pictures, and for prints. So I'm going to go ahead and sharpen, and I'm going to bring this up to about 44 or 48. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mask it just a little bit. And then you have your noise reduction. Noise reduction is a key thing, especially this color slider when you do black and white photos. It's a lifesaver. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring my luminance up just a tad. And the same thing with my color one. And then if I wanted to, I can go to the effects tab and I can add a more stronger vignette than I already have. Well, I'm just going to add a tiny one to about that, and I'm done. This is it. So I'm not going to do that quite yet. That was the before, the camera raw, and the after. So the after is on the left, the before is on the right. So I hope you guys were all able to keep up with this. And of course, if you have any questions, you can feel free to message me on the Facebook tutorial page, which is facebook.com/bangbangtutorial. And the Facebook page name is Bang Bang Tutorials. I will try to post when I will do more live streams of this. And if you have any questions at all, just make sure you ask. Hope you guys enjoy the video.